In this exercise, we're going to be filling in a cost table for a firm using all of those definitions on the previous slide. So you might want to make sure that you've got those definitions ready to go so that you understand what each of them means, and then think about, as we go through this table, how to apply each of those definitions, each of those formulas. I'm going to ask you to pause the video as we're going through. I won't leave gaps for you to work, but just pause as you need to fill out parts of this table yourself. Okay, so first off, where on earth can we start here? This table looks pretty sparse, doesn't look like it's filled in, but I promise you there is enough information on here combined with those formulas on the previous slide to fill in this entire table. The first place I'd encourage you to start, especially if you're working on one of these by yourself, is start with the fixed costs, because that's going to be the easiest place to look, and in particular use the fact that you've got a quantity of 0 here. Think about how that could help. Okay, so how that can help is our costs, when we produce nothing, must by definition be our fixed costs. See, if we're producing nothing but we still have costs, those must be the costs that still exist even when we produce nothing. That is, the costs that aren't changing as we produce something more. So our fixed costs must be 50, and correspondingly our variable costs must be 0 when we produce nothing. This is, again, by definition, our variable costs must be equal to 0 when we produce nothing, because variable costs only come from producing extra stuff. Well, once we know that fixed costs are 50 here, they must be 50 all the way down. So that's our next step. Oops. There is our next step, is we can add in fixed costs all the way down there. Okay, what can we do next? Well, next we could probably use the idea that total costs are equal to fixed costs plus variable costs. And so, for example, our total cost to produce 2 items must be 50 plus 100, or 150. 150. Our variable cost to produce 4 items must come from this formula. 270, the total cost, is equal to 50, the fixed cost, plus what variable cost? Well, it must be 220. There we are. Okay, what's next? Let's concentrate down the bottom here. We'll take a look at our bottom row. We've got an average cost over here. We know that average cost is equal to what is it? Average cost equals total cost divided by quantity. And so rearranging then, quantity times average cost must equal total cost. So there's our quantity, 8, there's our average cost, 75, so quantity of 8 times average cost of 75 must give us 600. Oops, times, there we go. Okay, so there's our next one then, 600 total cost, and then of course we can get our variable cost by realizing that fixed cost plus variable cost must equal our total cost. Okay, what can we do next? Let's keep going with average costs. We've got some average costs that we can fill in here. We can't do the first one, of course, because average costs are total cost divided by quantity, and so dividing by quantity, dividing by 0 we can't do, but we can divide our total costs by 2 and by 4, so 150 divided by 2 is 75, 270 divided by 4 is, what is that, 67.5, so there we go, there's a couple more average costs. How about a marginal cost now? So over on the right here, we've got our marginal cost. Marginal cost, remember this is the trickiest of them, it's that change in total cost divided by change in quantity. Okay, so our first one, what are we looking at? The quantity is changing from 0 to 2, so we've got a change in quantity of 2 there. Our total cost is changing from 50 up to 150, so that is a marginal cost of 100 on 2, or 50. What about the next one? Our quantity is again going up by 2, so we're going to do divided by 2. Our total costs going up by 120. 120 here, 120 divided by 2 gives us 60. Okay, so that's our next two marginal costs there. Now we can have a look at the final row that we haven't done anything on yet. This row here, what can we do? Well, we'll have to use this marginal cost that's sitting up here. Marginal cost, remember, is change in total cost divided by change in quantity. Change in total cost divided by change in quantity. We know the change in quantity is 2. What we don't know is the change in total cost. But we do know that the change in total cost times the change in quantity equals the change in quantity times 65. Well, our change in quantity is 2 times 65 must give us 130 as the change in total cost. So 130 plus the 270 total cost gives us 400, which of course we could then split into fixed costs and variable costs. 50 fixed costs leaves 350 variable cost. And our average cost we could also do, it's, remember, our total cost divided by quantity. Total cost is 400 divided by a quantity of 6. 400 on 6 is 66 2/3. Lastly, we've got our marginal cost for the transition between 6 and 8 units. Our quantity changes by 2. Our total cost changes by 200. So our marginal cost must be 100 for each of those two items on average. And so that is our entire table filled out.